Hello, my name is Gordon Molyneux, and in this video and the one to follow, I hope to demonstrate how the African talking drums work. Africa rightly has a reputation for vibrant music and the use of wonderful rhythms and drums for music, but a lot of people don't understand that the drums can also be used for sending messages, even detailed messages, over long distances through the forest in parts of central equatorial Africa. When the early explorers and travelers penetrated the continent and they heard these drums communicating with each other, they couldn't work out how the drum language worked. How was it they were able to send messages just by beating a drum? And they even accredited it to occult and magic and that sort of thing. But actually the explanation is very, very simple. We ought also to explain, of course, that the drum language is not the only form of non-vocal, non-verbal communication. Morse code uses a system whereby each letter of the alphabet is given a certain series of dots and dashes. And semaphore, of course, uses flags held in the hand at different angles in order, again, to represent letters of the alphabet. So both these systems, although very different from each other, have two things in common. One is that there is a sort of letter-to-letter equivalence, where each letter of the alphabet has a certain value either in dots and dashes or shapes, positions of the flag and so on. And the second thing is that they're both conventional languages, by which I mean that there is a common agreement of the values that are represented. For instance, there's no intrinsic reason why 3 dots should represent the letter S. No reason at all, but people just agree that that should be the case, and that 3 dashes should be O. It's a convention. And in the same way, there's no reason why a certain position of the flag should represent a letter. It's just an agreement. So these are conventional, non-vocal, non-verbal ways of communicating. The drum language is completely different, works on a completely different principle, and a much simpler principle, believe it or not, that I'm going to explain shortly. But I should say that when I first got out to where I was going to work in central Congo, just north of Kisangani, north central Congo, in the middle of the night or in the early hours of the morning, I heard one drum sending out a message across the forest. I thought, that's lovely, that sounds wonderful. A few seconds later, back came another message from another drum across the river, obviously replying to the first drum. Oh, this is amazing. How does this work? I must get to understand this mystery, and so I made the talking drum something of a hobby while I was out in Congo. I had a small drum made specially. You can see it here. It's a very small miniature replica of what all drums are like in that part of Africa, a section of tree trunk. The particular tree is called Pterocarpus soyongsi, and it's suitable for making drums because the outer edges of the wood are very, very hard and will resist weathering, whereas the inner part, the heart of the tree, is a lot softer and can be relatively easily evacuated, chiseled out in such a way that one lip of the tree, of the drum, because it's thinner, gives a lower note, and the other lip, because it's thicker, gives a higher note. Now, the other thing that needs to be understood is the nature of languages in that part of Africa. Not all African languages are tonal languages, but the drums that use, the ethnic groups that use the drum use tonal languages, by which I mean that every syllable of every word carries either a relatively high note or a relatively low note. So that means that every word has a musical tune to it. For instance, in English, if I were to use the word quickly, a 2-syllable word, quickly, it's flat, it has no tune to it, no differentiation between the 2 syllables. But in Kimanga, the language that I was using, this is what quickly is: kele, kele, low, high, low, low. So that tune, if I can reproduce that tune, low, high, low, low, on the drum, somebody 5 miles away can hear da 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 and know that they've got to do something quickly. Kele, 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 kele. So it's as simple as that. Of course, they don't just send out individual words, because if it was just short words, there'd be many, many words that share the same tonal pattern, the same tune as the other words. So what they tend to do is to use stereotype phrases. And the longer the phrase, the less chance there is that it'll coincide with any other. So for instance, the word for chicken in the drum language is the bird that sits on the ground and says kyu, kyu. And because it's a long phrase like that with its distinctive tune, it cannot be mistaken for anything else. So the drum language is a combination of these stereotype phrases sent out, repeated often, sent out, and understood as such. Well, I had my drum made, and by the way, I ought to explain here that a drum of this size would probably be able to send messages over 2 miles on a quiet evening or in the early morning. But some of the really big drums, and you can see from this picture how big most of the drums are. They're standing that high off the ground, weighing over a ton, and so powerful is the signal sent out from those drums when they're beaten that you can feel the sound waves thudding into your chest. And the greatest distance that was measured by one of these great big drums was the one at Yakusu, just downstream from Kisangani, downstream the Congo River. And there, the great big drum on the banks of the Congo could be heard, believe it or not, 20 miles away from where it was being beaten. Well, this is just a small one, but it was all I had to work with, so I thought I will try and practice on this and say something and get to know how to use the drum language. I went to the master drummer in our village, and I watched him, admired him, the strength and delicacy of his work like a concert pianist. And I watched him do it, and I devised a method of annotating so that I could note down on paper which hand came when and at what interval, the timing, and so on, because it's not always the one hand that does the low note and the other hand that does the high note. You interchange, and it has to flow as quickly and as fluently as possible. I decided also that I would try and not to be over-ambitious. I'd just try to master one message to start with, and so it was the message that was sent out every morning, calling people to the church, the Christian church in the village, where people could meet with God and pray. And I noted down the whole message, which I'm going to explain presently, and then I went back to the house. And of course the trouble is that with an instrument that can send a message 2 miles, when you beat it, all the mistakes you make also go 2 miles, and everybody can hear your mistakes. So what I did was to put blankets over the drum until I could just still hear the sound, but nobody else could. And I practiced each phrase over and over again until eventually the whole long message I managed to kind of master. And then the day came when I said I must take courage literally in both hands and take the drum out of the house and take the blankets off and beat the message and see what happens. And so I did that in fear and trepidation, and it was very gratifying a few minutes later to see people emerging from their houses and down from near the river and coming up to the church for their morning prayer meeting. Of course, to be honest, they probably would have done that anyway because they were used to doing that every morning. But it was very gratifying to hear some of them say, we heard your message this morning. It was exactly like the one that, the Baba Martini sends out, but it was on your drum. We heard every word, and that was very, very gratifying. Well, this is what the message sounds like. It starts off with Gologodo Gulugudu. This is a church announcement. And then it says, quickly, quickly. You people of Yatumbu, come quickly. You people of Yakusu, come quickly. Come to the house of the one who holds life and death in his hands. It's a wonderful expression of God, the one who holds life and death in his hands. So this is an invitation to come to his house every morning and to meet with him in prayer. You women, come quickly. You young men, come quickly. Come to the house of the one who holds life and death in his hands. Don't forget the promise you made at the beginning. And this is referring, of course, to the baptismal vows when people who are wanting to become Christians go down into the river and they are baptized, and they proclaim to everybody, all the people who are watching, I will love and serve and follow God until the very end of my life. And so this drum message says, don't forget that promise. Come quickly to the house of God. Well, you would perhaps like to hear that full message, so here it is. You'll have to take my word for it, but this is This is what the message sounds like. So that's how the drum language works, and it's just a pity, I have to say, that in many parts of Central Africa, I think just about everywhere, the drum language is a rapidly dying art form. Why? Because now everybody has a mobile phone, and with the mobile phone you can speak over many miles to the very person you want to say. It's not public and you won't be heard by everybody else. It has its disadvantages, but it also has its huge advantages, and so the drums of Central Africa, many of them, are lying unused and gradually rotting. Such a pity, when they can be so very useful. I hope to demonstrate in the next little video one of the uses that I put the drum to when I was out there in Congo. Thank you.